Hello and welcome to the Famous Matches of Magic channel. Today we'll be presenting the 2022 Eternal Weekend Legacy Championship match between Reid Duke and Eric English. The winner of this matchup will make the top 8 of the Legacy Championship. Now, before we get down to the action, let's take a look at the deck lists. Reid is playing a black-green elf deck, pretty much just for the sideboard. But he has a pretty straightforward elf deck that has a couple of new cards. It has one Leaf-Crowned Visionary, which is an Elf Lord and a Glimpse of Nature tied in one. He has Beseiju Who Endures, which is a relatively new land that is just an all-star land that serves as a naturalize and a forest all in one. It also has the relatively new Allosaurus Shepherd, which can just have elves win out of nowhere and just make everything into a 5/5. Other than that, it is just a pretty much straightforward Nettle Sentinel Glimpse of Nature combo deck that can pull a Craterhoof Behemoth out of the deck with the natural orders. It also has a couple Once Upon a Times, and it can also Glimpse of Nature a Dryad Arbor on turn 1. But this is pretty much the elf deck we have been seeing years and years out of Legacy, but it is just slowly being updated over time like most Legacy decks. And now Eric English is piloting a brand new mono white deck that is nothing like the traditional Death and Taxes deck. It has lots of new cards that are venturing into the dungeon, such as Seasoned Dungeoneer and White Plume Adventurer. These are all new cards that are allowing you to venture into the dungeon. It also has Elite Spellbinder, which is relatively new, or Apollo Vitor Dama de Rosa. It also has all of the fast mana to speed these creatures out with City of Treaters and Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal, and Chrome Mox. It is not afraid to get rid of the card advantage. It also has Touch of the Spirit Realms for creature removal and Solitude for creature removal. This deck is nothing like Death and Taxes. This is a completely new deck, but it does have Thalia, as that creature is just too good. It has lots of non-basics for other things, such as Cavern of Souls and the Ajano Castle to deal damage to attacking creatures. It has 3 planes that can be searched up from venturing into the dungeon. But like I said, this is not an updated Death and Taxes. This is a mono white initiative deck. Now let's head down to the match. Alright, Eric English is on the play with a City of Traders Lotus Petal and White Plume Adventurer, which allows him to venture into the Undercity, into the secret entrance, and search up a snow-covered plains. He will then pass the turn on to Reid Duke. He also is going to take the initiative. So every turn he is going to be able to venture further into the dungeon until Reid Duke attacks him. Reid is going to start with a free Once Upon a Time, revealing a Gaia's Cradle. What else can he come up with? He starts with a Dryad Arborer, which can be a dangerous start, as it can be Swords to Plowshared or Wastelanded or whatever, but he ventures further into the Undercity, into the Forge, which makes his White Plume Adventurer a 5/5, attacking on the second turn. That just shows you the power of the White Plume Adventurer. A Solitude is going to be exiling the Dryad Arborer, leaving Reid Duke with an empty board, and a 5/5 White Plume Adventurer beating down on Reid Duke. City of Traders is going to be sacrificed, and a Thalia enters the board, and the White Plume Adventurer untaps. So Reduke is not looking so good here already. This mono white deck is showing the power that it has right here. It has also been showing lots of power even in Vintage. So these dungeon cards are not to be laughed at. Reduke just plays a simple Gaia's Cradle and passes the turn. We are going to venture further into the dungeon, into the trap, where Reduke will lose 5 more life, and then Thalia and the White Plume Adventurer will get in there. Another City of Traders, and passes the turn on to Reduke. Reduke better come up with something a lot better here, or he is going to be in serious trouble. He plays a Boseiju and a Nettle Sentinel, which will activate his Gaia's Cradle. His Gaia's Cradle now produces 1. And a Birchlore Rangers, which he can now tap the Birchlore and the Nettle Sentinel for another mana. But he does not, and he passes it back. And we enter the Archives, which allows Eric English to draw another card. 1 more turn, and we're going to get the ultimate on the dungeon. So Eric English is in a dominating position here. What is Reduke going to do? Is he going to block? How is he going to block here? I mean, what is going to happen? If anyone can get out of this situation, it's Reduke, but I don't really see how he can. Is he chump blocks the 5/5 and takes the 2? He sacks his Wooded Foothills, goes to 1. Drops an Elvish Visionary to draw a card. Gaia's Cradle now produces 2. Taps the Gaia's Cradle for 2. Drops a Leaf Crowned Visionary. Pumps up all of his elves. But he is still not looking very good here, as he's going to have to block both of his creatures, as he is at 1 point of life. And now we are into the Throne of the Dead 3, which allows him to look at the top 10, put a creature into play. Eric English is showing him all the other cards that are not being put into play, but Reduke is just getting some more information, and that is game 1. Reduke goes down in pretty easy fashion for Reduke. And we are on to game number 2, where Reduke will be on the play. Reduke once again starts with a Dryad Arbor, which is very dangerous, so let's hope that lives if you're a Reduke fan. And we have double Lotus Petal, which is from the Vault's exiled Lotus Petals, for those who care. And we have another White Plume Adventurer entering the Secret Entrance, and a Swords to Plowshares on the Dryad Arbor. So this is looking very similar to the first game, and once again a Once Upon the Time. So yeah, very similar. And Once Upon a Time searches up a Wooded Foothills, which immediately gets sacrificed. And we have a Nettle Sentinel for Reduke. We are venturing further into the dungeon for a 5/5 White Plume Adventurer into the Forge. Get in there for 5. Sacrifices the City of Traders once again for a Containment Priest, which will now shut off all of Reduke's natural orders, which is basically the cheap way that elves can pull out of a win from nowhere. So that is one answer that Reduke does not have to take out this mono white deck. Reduke enters into a deep thought here. What can he do? Let's see if he can drop another creature Anagaea's Cradle to get some serious mana going. No, instead he drops a Beta Forest and a Wirewood Symbiote. And an Allosaurus Shepherd, which for 6 mana can turn his whole team into 5/5 creatures. But we venture further into the Undercity, into the trap. Reid loses 5 life. Eric English wants to review exactly what that Allosaurus Shepherd does. See if he wants to risk attacking, and he is not afraid. He gets in with his 5/5 White Plume Adventure, as it's going to untap anyway, and he drops a Thalia. Reid untaps. I'm a little surprised Reid didn't block and return an elf to his hand for a free chump block there with his Wirewood Symbiote, as Wirewood Symbiote can return an elf to his owner's hand and untap target creature. But he chose not to do that. He attacks with his Wirewood Symbiote, I believe, to gain the initiative there. And he drops a Nair Wirewood Symbiote and a Nettle Sentinel to build out his board. Eric English enters the tank. What to do, what to do. It's like a family tree, part of you and part of me. He drops an Elite Spellbinder, takes out the Behemoth from Reid's hand. And actually, he has to deal combat damage to him to take the initiative. So I don't quite understand why Reid attacked with that Wirewood Symbiote there, honestly. As Eric English kept the initiative there. So I have no idea why that Wirewood Symbiote attacked into the Thalia. White Plume Adventurer attacks again. And he blocks with Allosaurus and returns it to his hand, the play I was mentioning earlier. Eric English plays a Solitude and exiles the other Wirewood Symbiote. Untaps his White Plume Adventure at the end of the turn, and this is not looking good for Reid at all. He is on death's doorway. As we know what's in his hand, as he drops the Collector Oof, and we enter the Throne of the Dead 3, but the Collector The containment priest will not allow the creature to enter play, so this is basically irrelevant. But Eric English has a gigantic board here. We know what's in Reid Duke's hand. He just has a couple of creatures. He's going to triple block on the White Plume Adventurer. Both of Reid's elves are going to die, leaving Reid with just a collector oof. He's going to pass back to Reid. Let's see what Reid can do here. He just simply passes back to Eric English, who starts over into the dungeon, but he has no more planes in his deck, I don't believe. He only has 3. So he's just searching and shuffling, searching and shuffling. Another elite spellbinder on Reid Duke. Taking a look at his hand. Reid Duke is going to play his Dismember, but he has to pay 4 life, so that brings him to 4. And now another elite spellbinder still going to enter play, so Allosaurus leaves play, leaving just a Once Upon a Time in Reid Duke's hand. Writing is on the wall here. Now he's going to attack with both of his creatures here. I'm assuming, or he's just going to pass the turn and finish Reid off next turn, so most likely, Reid is going to extend the handshake, and no, he draws an Elvish Visionary. He passes the Gaia's Cradle, so actually that's a pretty good draw, but 2 counters go on the Elite Spellbinder, and he gets in for 5, and that is it. So Eric English makes top 8 at Eternal Weekend 2022, finishing off Reid Duke, who was extremely close. And I would thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Have a great day.